everyone, this is Professor Nancy Mahan. We're going to continue our lesson on Module 1, Arithmetic Readiness. And today in this video, we're going to talk about fractions, specifically adding and subtracting fractions. So fractions, I know, might be a little bit scary to some of you guys, and that's okay. We're going to review some of the basic rules of adding and subtracting fractions. Do it in a pretty fast manner, so feel free to pause and rewind or rewatch it if it's going a little bit too fast for you. But this course isn't to teach you all about fractions, but just to give you the highlights of what are the main things about fractions. So in my previous video, I gave you an overview of what Module 1 is about. It's about all of these pre-algebra review concepts and that math is a language that we're learning. So the first thing that we're going to learn is about fractions. It's going to be about the noun called fractions. And we want to know all about this noun, all about this fractions, and what are the rules for it. So first off, adding and subtracting fractions. And if you're following along on your worksheets, which I hope you are, I'm going to be tackling question 1 and question 2 on your worksheet here. So as you can see, there's an adding sign and a subtraction sign. So the nouns for these problems are fractions. And I also need to notice what are the verbs. So we want to notice what are the nouns and what are the verbs of an expression that we see on a piece of paper. So here I see that this is addition. And I see that this is subtraction. So right away I'm thinking, okay, I'm adding and subtracting fractions. What rules do I need to know? And I hope you have a piece of paper with you so that you could highlight or box in some of the main rules, because as you're learning a certain language, you want to not just memorize how to solve a problem, you actually want to really understand the rules, because the rules won't change with math, which is one of the reasons why I love math. It's very consistent. There's not really any exceptions to the rules. So if you stick with the rules, you'll get to the right destination. So when you're adding and subtracting fractions, so here make sure that you're dealing with the verb of plus and minus, right? You're adding and subtracting fractions. So fractions, so I'm going to just put the number 1/9 here. The top of the fraction is called the numerator, or we call it the top, right? And the bottom of the fraction is called the denominator, and that's the bottom of the fraction. And what that represents is the denominator represents the whole. So in other words, if you were to draw a big circle, right, then you would then they would say that this whole pizza or circle has 9 different parts to it. There's a whole with 9, so equal parts. So I am totally not a great drawer at all. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And definitely not a good drawer. So pretend that these are 9 equal parts, right? And I didn't really draw it very well, but pretend there were 9. And then the numerator means the part that is shaded in, right? Or the part that is eaten, or the part that is whatever that we're interested in. So here, if there were 9 slices of pizza, then one of them is shaded in. So this picture here represents 1/9 in terms of the shaded part over the whole. So this is what a fraction is in its basic essence. Now, when we want to add or subtract fractions, here are some of the rules. And again, I'm giving you just the cliff notes of the rules of adding and subtracting fractions without going into too much depth about it. So whenever you add or subtract fractions, so when adding or subtracting fractions, the first thing you want to look at once you realize you're adding and subtracting is that you want to look at the denominator. So I'm going to put, these are eyeballs here. Look at eyeballs with eyebrows. Look at the denominator. So again, the denominator is the number on the bottom of the fraction. So if the denominators are the same, if the denominators are the same, then what we call that is that we have like fractions, quote unquote, like fractions. So like fractions mean that they have something in common, meaning that they have the bottom in common. So if I had in this problem 1/9 plus 5/9, I look at the denominator and I see a 9 and a 9. That means I'm kind of having two pizzas, both of them cut up in 9 pieces, right? So they're like pizzas, or they're like denominators. So because they have like denominators, or they're like fractions, then, so this is an if and then. So there's a lot of ifs and thens in the topic of math. So if the denominators are the same, then we can add or subtract, depending on whatever the verb is. We can add or subtract the numerators together. And then your answer will be in such a way that you keep the denominator the same. Keep the denominator the same, but of course, change the numerator, right? So here in this example, I have 1/9 plus 5/9. I see that the denominators are the same. So what does this equal? This equals to, well, the 9 stays the same, because again, it's like if me having 2 pizzas, right, cut up into 9 pieces, right? They're cut up into 9 pieces. And again, I'm not going to draw 9 pieces because I can't draw it very evenly. So 9 is the denominator, and the top here, one of them is shaded, right? Here's one that's shaded, so it's 1/9. And here 5 of them are shaded, so pretend I cut 5 of them somewhere here, right? So this is 5/9, right? So in the end, it's still out of 9 pieces, but then the part that's shaded is 1 plus 5, right? So because it's 1 plus 5 here. So 1 plus 5 gives me 6/9. So 6/9 is the temporary answer for now, right? So you add the numerators and you keep the denominator the same. So keep the denominator the same and add or subtract. So whichever, whether there's an adding or subtraction sign, subtract the denominators. So that's pretty simple in terms of like denominators or like fractions. So notice that the question says in simplest form. So in simplest form is you want your answer in the smallest form possible. So here, 6/9, to write something in simplest form, so write your answers, write your fractions in simplest form. So when you get to the very end, you want to write in simplest form. So what does it mean to write something in simplest form? It means to make it in such a way where they're written in the smallest form possible. And what does that mean? So if you look at the number 6 and the number 9, I asked myself, is there a number that I could divide the top and the bottom by evenly? And the answer here is yes, right? 9 and 6, what do they have in common that you can divide by evenly? You could divide it by 3. And you'll learn this word more, we'll use it later. It's called a factor. 9 and 6 both have a common factor of 3, meaning they're both divisible by 3. So I divide by 3 on top, and I divide by 3 on bottom. So when I divide the 3 on top and the 3 on bottom, 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. 9 divided by 3 will give me 3. And this will be your answer in the end. 6/9 and 2/3, these are actually what we call equivalent fractions, meaning if I drew a picture of this piece, of this pizza, and I drew a picture of this picture, it would actually represent the same picture. If you divide it here, so let me just show you here. So 6/9, and again, my pizza drawing is terrible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Pretend that is drawn equally. 6/9, if I shade 6 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it would represent this part of the pizza. Now, if I was to draw a pizza which represents 2/3, so that means, so this is 6/9, and now this is 2/3. That means I'm going to cut this into thirds. So if I cut this into thirds, it'll look maybe something like this, right? Something like this. Pretend again that this is cut kind of evenly. So 2/3, meaning I shade 2 parts of the pizza or of the circle. Well, if I'm in a perfect world, if I drew all this nice and neat, this pizza looks exactly the same thing as this pizza. They're called equivalent fractions or equivalent pizzas because they're the same amount is being shaded in this part as it is in this, but this one is just cut into more slices and this is cut into fewer slices. So they're equivalent fractions, and when you write your final answer, you always want to write it in simplest form, meaning in the smallest numbers possible. So that is 2/3 for question number 1.